met some of our panel already, but let's reintroduce some and introduce some others. Gary Breimer, the newest Hall of Famer. Became involved in the spring of 1976 as a coach. He joined the staff in 1994 as the Director of Sports and Training. He continues to be involved by assisting staff with GMS issues as well as sports rules questions. I'll also tell you he was a member of the management team for Team USA, and he is the reason that the games in Missouri are some of the best games in the entire movement. Gary Breimer. Hall of Famer Rob Eichelberger has been involved in Special Olympics since 1997. He attended the 2006 USA Games where he competed in singles and doubles tennis, winning gold medals in each. While training for the 2011 World Games in Greece, he suffered an injury that ended his tennis career. Currently, he competes in unified golf alternate shot with his unified partner, Ryan Breimer. Rob served on our board of directors from 2007 to 2016. There is an award named after Rob, the Rob Eichelberger Award for perfect attendance for 8 years on the board of directors. Hall of Famer Vanna Galloway has been a volunteer and supporter of Special Olympics Missouri since its beginning in the early 70s in Marshall, Missouri. Vanna has been a coach, a volunteer area director, a member of the Sports Management Advisory Council, a sports director, a venue coordinator, president of the United States, a photographer, and most importantly, a friend to all Special Olympics athletes. As some of the first area directors in Missouri, Vanna built and grew what was once Area 11 to one of the best areas in the state, and she's known as the low motor champion for all low motor athletes. Vanna Galloway. Chief Jim Moran, and you've heard a lot about him already, so we'll make this brief, has been involved with the torch run since the early 1990s. He's played golf tournaments, trivia nights, sold t-shirts, raffle tickets, gone over the edge, and helped raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for SOMO. He chairs the statewide law enforcement torch run committee. He is the winner of the Carrion Award, which is the highest award you can win worldwide for law enforcement torch run. And he, one more thing, he and his colleagues last year raised $56 million worldwide for Special Olympics. Hall of Famer Bee Webb is a mentor, fundraiser, and a leader, but above all, she is a coach. For 30 years, Coach Bee has been on the sidelines giving hundreds of athletes to reach their potential. She never gives up on them and realizes her job of teaching life skills is an important lesson she can give through sports. Coach Bee has served on the SOMA Board of Directors, where she's been an avid fundraiser. She's completed 2 terms of 8 years apiece. Her efforts in leading an annual Dare to Dream golf scramble make sports camp possible each year. She is considered one of the premier coaches worldwide in Special Olympics. Coach Bee Webb. Let the games begin. Gary shared earlier with how he got involved during his acceptance Hall of Fame speech. And Gary, you talked about how you helped your ex-wife get an A, and talked a little bit about that. What I'd like to ask each of you is the following question. What year did you first become involved? What did Special Olympics look like at that time? So Gary, I'll start with you since we know how you did it. What year was it and what did it look like?
Well, 1976 obviously was when I started, and my first games were the Area 10 spring games in Marshall, Missouri, and I had no idea what to expect, so we show up, and of course our athletes are wearing jeans and whatever shoes they could wear. Most of them weren't tennis shoes, and t-shirts, and everybody else was the same way. And they had much different events actually in those days. We had a 25, well, they weren't meters in those days, they were yards. We would run the 50-yard dash and the 100-yard dash, and they had different events going on and all kinds of stuff. But you walked into the games and there was all these people, which was really neat to see all the people, but there were no uniforms, there weren't any colors, there weren't any signs, there was no signage. One of the first things you noticed was there wasn't any of that stuff. Of course, I noticed it because we started bringing in the signage after we went to won games and found out what other people did. We brought our signage, which was due in large part to Diana White, who was here earlier. But we really, people just, they didn't have uniforms, so you just did what you could. When they started basketball, we'd go out and buy T-shirts and take magic marker and make numbers on the shirts, and that was our uniform. And we'd ask the guys to get shorts. Well, if they couldn't afford them, we went and bought them for them and things like that. Those were the way things were. A lot of stuff came out of our pockets in the early days as volunteers because the athletes couldn't afford them. And we were lucky enough to raise enough money. In those days, we had to pay, it was a $10 assessment fee to go to games. And so we were lucky enough to raise enough money for $10. Of course, one of the things that I implemented with my team is if you didn't come to the games, you owed me $10 because that $10 came out of my pocket or out of what we fundraised. So it was fun.
Can I ask the panel to all pull the mics a little closer to them so they're having a rough time? Susan Steckman is 18 and she's having a rough time listening. Yeah. So Rob, what year did you get involved? What did it look like?
1997, and it's kind of like it is right now. A little more advanced than yours, I guess you could say. I think the assessment fee was probably about like $15 I think for me to go to some state games, I guess.
Okay. Vanna?
1971 and 72 as a volunteer in Marshall, and then I went to work for a rehabilitation center in Higginsville. The area director, I started in 74 there, and the area director left in 75, and since I was in I was volunteered to do that job. And the games were quite different, and I have never regretted being drafted for that position. But everybody is so computer savvy. Piece of paper, ink, pen, and pencil is how we set up the games. So when I married my husband in 82 and he inherited us, we were still doing pencil and paper. So many times our kitchen table on our floors were, you were putting heaps together, trying to figure out who needs to be where because of their time or their distance. And then we would log it all on a piece of paper and distributed to everybody at games, and that was not just local games, that was state games too. So, not that all computers are great, but they sure have helped to speed up the process and be able to put things in and out. So, as Gary alluded to, the first games were very unorganized organization chaos. You brought your athletes in, or the athletes came in on their own, and we plugged them in someplace right there on the spot. We had no idea many times who was coming in the gate to put our games together, so we just winged it. And here we are, 50 years later, still doing the same thing. So we will just provide, I'm saying that in a good way, that if somebody slips through the cracks, we still make sure that our athletes are taken care of. So we were a big family then. Everybody worked together. There was none of as many people in the workforce say, oh, that's not my job descriptor. We all had the same job descriptor. Get the job done, make sure our athletes were safe and had a wonderful experience. We wanted them to succeed. And one of my many, many things was, when I would give speeches, is what is your goal? I want my athletes to graduate from our program. I want them to become mentors to the next generation and become coaches just like we all are. So I always said I wanted them to graduate from the program, and many of them have, thank goodness. And so that's.
Ben, I haven't been a part of those divisioning on the kitchen floor. You left out the beer and pizza part.
Well, that we have to, in moderation,
yes.
You're trying to put it together.
It helped divisioning though.
It did make it more efficient.
Vanna, you mentioned that you started in 71. For everyone's benefit, can you clarify where the first Missouri Special Olympics State Summer Games were?
It was at Missouri Valley College in Marshall, Missouri.
And then the second one in 72
Was in Marshall also. Then
And
we went to
73?
Marshall. Then we went to Springfield
for 1 year.
for 1 year.
And then from there to Fort Leonard Wood?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's
75.
okay. So the
Yeah.
first 2 years in Marshall, the third year in Springfield, and then Fort Leonard Wood for just a little 27-year stint.
Just a little
I think it was,
stint,
something like
yes.
that. Is Jim still done?
He's still
Jim
here.
ran what year? And let me ask you this, how did you get involved?
My first year was 1989. I got a call. I'd been on a case that was, I was probably in my 36th straight hour of work, and got a call and said, hey, we really need somebody that can run 20 miles today. Will you come out? And so I looked at the boss and I said, hey, can I take time away to go run 20 miles? And so I went out to Highway 50 and ran 10 miles, took a break, took a little nap, and then ran another 10, and then went back to work. And that was my entrance into Special Olympics. I really had any experience before that. With that, didn't know really about the torch run. I just was a runner. They needed somebody who put a lot of miles in that day. And it's interesting because back then, you know, we had someone, actually shortly after that, I was introduced to the ways and means of a certain guy named Rich Banahan. And I think he skipped out of this one today too, so I don't see him, so I can tell you the whole truth and nothing but the truth. And, but he said, hey, would you like to help me out and sell some t-shirts? I said, sure, I'll help you out. And I didn't realize what he meant by that was, I don't do anything, I'm just looking for somebody else to do it for me. And so, the next thing I knew, I had 3 boxes of t-shirts that, you know, I was going to sell. In other words, it wasn't help me sell, just sell them for me. So, but back then we were just small. We were raising a few thousand dollars at the most. And really nobody knew each other that well. And we had a guy on our first committee when I joined, used to say we raise everything $1 at a time. And, you know, back then really we were $1 at a time. We were selling $10 t-shirts. And, you know, last year we're $2.2 million. So things have come a long way since then.
That deserves another round of applause. Coach, we all know you gave Mrs. Schreiber the idea, so what year was that? And what didn't look like anything, but you
No,
gave
that's
the idea.
all right. I take that as a compliment. I started in 1977 as a volunteer in Kansas. And then I started coaching in Missouri in 1980. The 3 things that I would like to say that I remember different now is 1, we weren't required to carry physicals everywhere we went. 2, once again, there was no uniforms. Everybody just came and participated. You just happened to know your athletes and you made sure your athletes were taken care of. And 3, the most important, is I remember driving during state summer games to Fort Leonard Wood, and we would always run into the torch run into Fort Leonard Wood on the highway. And everybody used to stop and let them pass. And I remember being in a van, and all my guys, we stopped, and everybody got out and clapped for the torch run. That's one thing I remember that we do not do now. They do it right there on the premises.
What's the thing for any of you that in those early days of those first events that was frustrating for you to see, besides the chaos that you all have described? Is there anything that was frustrating for you to see?
For me, it's just,
Frustrated?
Lean up to the mic.
Like what? I mean, I always felt grateful, and I always tried to teach my athletes to appreciate what other people do for them. And so, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to put it, I try to show the other side of competing when we go places and see what other people do. I don't think it was frustrating. It might have been frustrating that the athletes didn't understand, but I always appreciate what everybody did.
Gary, would you say?
well, for me, the most frustrating part was the fact that the rules weren't followed consistently at any time. But back then, it was, you were lucky if you had people that even knew what we were doing, you know. I remember going to Blue Springs the first year, and I still probably hold the technical foul record for Blue Springs, but the officials weren't officials. They were just regular volunteers came off the floor. We had a game one day, and I kept telling the official, watch the 3 seconds, watch the 3 seconds. And he says, what do you mean, what's 3 seconds? And so I said, okay, never mind. We'll just go ahead and play the game. But, you know, we've come a long way. We use registered officials now, and those things make a whole big difference in just being able to make our games quality games.
What's been the biggest change? You know, we're really fundamentally about sports. What's been the biggest change about the organization since the early days, since we're talking about the early days? Anyway, Coach B?
I was thinking the opportunities to go to a higher competition has truly changed. Instead of being picked by just because you know that person, now you have to compete to the best of your ability. You have to be each step. There's a step to getting to World Games, and I like that. And that's quite different from what it used to be.
I think the general knowledge in the world what Special Olympics is all about.
Yeah, I'd like to give an experience of that as well. It's kind of a gratitude. In 2003, I had the opportunity to run the final leg. We started in Athens, Greece. Then I went through several countries before we ended up for 9 days running through Ireland. And part of the final leg is at each stop we make an officer, and 2003 was also the first time we brought athletes along. So we had teams of 10, and you had an athlete with each team. So we had 10 athletes, and an athlete spoke as well. And we had towns in Ireland. We had so many people in towns. People would tell us it's way over the population of the town. So we knew we had people following us that were coming from other towns. They'd follow us and watch 2 or 3 events over and over again. And at this one experience I had where I was the speaker, and I came down from the stage, and we were all hanging around talking to the townspeople. A lady came up, she was crying, and she started hugging me, and she couldn't stop crying enough for me to find out what was going on. And I would ask her, "Are you okay?" And she'd say, shake her head, "Yes," and keep crying and hug me again. And finally, when she could compose herself, she said, "You don't understand, you just told everybody in my town from that stage in 10 minutes what I've been trying to tell them for 10 years about my child, that he deserves equal treatment like every one of their children. And tomorrow I go to court and I'm taking your story with me." And, you know, for me it was eye-opening, because that was part of the 2003 experience, was bringing awareness to, the reason we went to all multiple countries was to bring the awareness of Special Olympics to many places where they hadn't experienced it. And I really didn't have that awareness or understanding of the depth of that until that moment, when I realized that yes, what we were doing was monumental. And as you just stated, we were sharing this message in a way that was reaching thousands of people. Could never be done without what we did.
And any of you that go to Ireland today, if you wear a Special Olympics shirt, they will share their story with you about how those World Games changed their entire island, their entire country, still today. Rob, speaking of USA Games, you want to answer the other one though first? Go ahead.
Yes, that last question right there, I'd like to say, like we have athlete leadership programs right now, which we didn't have before. The Over the Edge, I don't know about trivia nights, but that was another one that brought me to this.
How about, tell us a little bit about your experience at USA Games. We're talking a lot about Seattle.
Yes.
Everybody's getting excited about Seattle. It's just, Schaefer's just a little under 5 months away. I hope you're going to be ready. And as a result of that, people need to know what a USA Games is like from an athlete's perspective.
It was nervous at first, because that was the first time I was away from home, and I did not know what to expect really. Like I said, it was in the Ames, Iowa. Got to meet some cool people, including a celebrity by the name of Kurt Warner, who used to play for the St. Louis Rams. And I also got to play singles and doubles tennis. And I received a gold medal in each of those, and so did my tennis partner, Bobby Woods from Lee Summit.
So it's a good time?
It was a blast. because I was away from home and I wanted to experience something. I wanted to experience something for the first time in my life.
That's great. Let me ask each of you some individual questions like I just asked Rob. Jim, why do the law enforcement officers, whether it's in Missouri or Abu Dhabi or Zimbabwe, why are they so involved in Special Olympics and what do they get out of it?
Well, the draw is the relationship we have with the athletes. As I was sharing recently at a press conference, there's not a whole lot of charities you can sink your teeth into where you create these relationships with special people like we get to do with our special athletes. And you know, when I was standing on this podium talking to the news media about the plane pole event, I was with two friends, Rob and Lindsay, you know, and it was fun for me. I mean, because Lindsay calls me Jim and Rob calls me Moran. And it's, you know, so law enforcement, you know, and I get the opportunity to see my international partners when we have our international conference, and we all talk the same. We start with you know, by the nature of our business, we want to help people. Anybody that takes our role, especially in today's world, and without that interest. And so once we find out what the torch run is, and we allow ourselves the opportunity and the gift to participate, then all of a sudden we realize that it's not about raising money. We're creating friendships and relationships with people like Rob, and that's what keeps me going.
Gary, what makes Special Olympics Missouri a premier program? We've been to a lot of other programs and games. Why do we keep saying we're a premier program from your perspective?
Well, first of all, you and Ralph made Special Olympics Missouri what it is today, and I appreciate everything you guys did. In fact, I also appreciate the fact that you would even consider hiring me back in those days.
I voted against you.
I know. But Special Olympics Missouri is good because not only do we have premier games because we worked hard from local programs up to the area programs up to the state programs of making it consistent, the rules consistent. You have to have uniforms now and all this other stuff. And it's harder. Every year it gets harder because we have to raise more money and you have to have more money to buy new equipment and so on and so forth. But we've done that, and we've worked very hard to get registered officials to come to our games, and that's another thing that makes them quality games as well. But it's the people that you get to work with. I started working with the key volunteers, the venue coordinators, and in the early days, I would have them tell me what they needed instead of what, you know, I thought they needed, and then I'd make a list, and the next year I would put those boxes together. Thank God I got Schaefer to put the boxes together later on, because I got tired of doing that. But it's the fact that we had not only key volunteers, but volunteers that care. You have to have the people that care about the program, and it comes from the heart. And most of our volunteers, especially our key volunteers, I mean, people like Vanna and Bee that continue to come back every year and do the same jobs over and over. Vanna has become, like we said, the low motor queen, you know, things like that. It's because we have those volunteers, and without them, we can't do it ourselves anymore. We used to do it all by ourselves, but not anymore. We can't. So
let's hear it for the volunteers. And speaking of volunteers, all of you that are coaches in the room know there's not a greater job in the world than coaching Special Olympics. I say that from firsthand experience. Coach B,
Yes.
Why should someone become a coach in Special Olympics?
Why should someone become a coach?
Because there's probably some people in the audience here that maybe need to hear this.
That is a hard question because I wanted to be a coach. Everything that I've done or have had the experience to do coaching is because I wanted it. I thrive for it. The only thing, the joy of watching an athlete smile, the joy of watching an athlete be successful after training so hard and they finally got it. The joy of watching an athlete go to the next level, whether it is an athlete or a unified partner, is the most rewarding thing that I can ever have. And I can sit here and tell you how I feel, but I don't think that it would help you until you have the opportunity to feel for yourself. Only thing I can, I don't know, it's so much emotion in coaching, and you give 100% of yourself that sometimes it's tiring. I don't know, but I always look for the next moment to see happiness in a smile, or to see or hear someone say, I got it now, or can we do this again, or when are we going out of town, or when is practicing starting. Believe it or not, I do have them texting me, like, when are we going to practice? So these are the things. They're small steps, small things to make you smile and feel good. If you want to feel good for the rest of your life, or when you wake up first thing in the morning, be a coach.
You will
Teach
always
somebody.
get more
You will
back.
always. Someone will always love you if you're a coach.
You always get more than you ever give.
Well said. Vanna, are you an honest person?
I would hope so.
In 1991, were you on the board of directors?
Yep.
In 1991, were you the area director rep on the search committee for the new CEO?
Yes. So you can
On that
believe me
search
that Mark
committee,
is here.
on that search committee, was it a unanimous vote? It was not.
It was not
It
an
was not a
unanimous.
unanimous vote. You were down to 2 candidates. How did you vote, Vanna?
It was a long time ago. She was having a-
I have a touch of Alzheimer's and
I waited a long time for this.
and that's the only question he wanted to ask me today.
I want, no, I'm not going to answer that. We know it was not a unanimous vote.
No, we do know it was not, but
I'll
very good choice.
ask you an easier one. I want you to think back. We've had some great times throughout the years, all of us. Anybody that's been in the movement has. And we've had some fun times, we've had some funny times. If I asked you to pick the funniest story that comes to mind, with just those parameters, to do with Special Olympics, that can go on video that we can play again down the road.
Do I need to
Yes.
pause it?
Yeah.
Can I pause it?
Yeah.
you can't.
What's the funniest story that comes to mind? Rob, you got one?
Probably at the national games, it was really the Brian guys. It was Ryan, Seth, and Micah. We were playing it just for fun. And Bobby, we just beat him in a test match. But like I said, it's just for fun, though. It's 3-on-2. We didn't care who won or lost. We weren't even getting scored anyways. But I just thought it was a great time to get to know the Brimers and Bobby a little bit better also.
Okay, cool. B?
I was just talking to Gary in our first camp in 1997, I think, Schaefer, am I correct? Where we had introduced volleyball in our young days. Gary, Brimer, Webb, and I think Tim Schuster whooped all of the staff in volleyball. It was just the three of us, and we laugh and think about that all the time, but I thought that was quite funny that they kept rotating 6 against 3.
Do you recall it that way, Gary? Did you want to?
Yeah, I could play back then, like it was before my knee replacements.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was a good time, but it was a time of getting to know each other And the athletes love it because we was performing for them at a free time. So it was not only funny, but it was good. It was a good time.
Jim? You're probably involved managing.
Yeah, I don't know if I can tell this one. What the hell? We used to run all the way from St. Louis to Raleigh, and part of the time. And so we were running, and we do it in stages. Everybody take their turn usually to try and run 10 miles or whatever. And then we go up ahead and wait for the crowd to come up. And so then it's a long day. It's a long day of running. And we take heat from the newscasters. Remember, newscasters were, and then so somebody inevitably on our running team would get upset and make the call in. Kind of push back, but there's one day we were all waiting. We all got to this one spot, this exit ramp. We all met at this one exit ramp, and we all looked around and said, "Who's running?" John and Jim are running. "Where's Kenny?" "I don't know. Where's Kenny?" "I thought he was with you." "Well, he ain't with me." "Well, he's got to be with." "Oh, here's Joe." "Joe, do you got Kenny?" "No, I don't got Kenny." And nobody knew where Kenny was. Like, well, have we seen him since we stopped at McDonald's? No, I haven't seen him. Like, oh man, did we forget him at McDonald's? Now, I'm going to set the stage here for you. We're in outstate Missouri back in the 90s, and Kenny is African American. And he's wearing a t-shirt and gym shorts. And that's all he has. And he's in McDonald's, and he has nothing on him, and we accidentally left him at McDonald's. So that was back in the days of the payphone. So he calls 911, and he can't get anybody to believe him that he's a police officer, and his fellow police officers left him at McDonald's. In small town Missouri along Highway 44. So finally he talks him into sending somebody by. And then he can't get the deputy sheriff to believe him either. And so he's actually, so finally he talks him into it, and all of a sudden we're all scrambling like, you go there, we'll try and find him, and all of a sudden he shows up and gets out, he's just shaking his head, and so we left Kenny at the McDonald's.
We've all got our Where's Kenny story, right?
Yeah, I know. Kenny's still with us.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't think I can talk.
Oh, you can't hear it?
Well,
You had a lot of time to think about it.
I have
Have a
a
good
bunch of stories that I can tell, but the one I always remember is when I was every Halloween we dress up, and back in the old office we had these arches out there. It was Halloween, and there was all these leaves underneath the arches and everything. Well, Mary Lou and I would get to the office first thing in the morning. So I remember, I made sure I got there early, and I dressed up like a bum, and I laid down in the leaves. And Mary Lou comes up to open the door, and I climbed up out of the leaves, and I think she was still running 20 minutes later. When she got back, she killed me.
I'm going to ask each of you the following question. What do you want this audience to know about you and your fellow coaches? What should we know about coaches in Special Olympics? You want to make sure they leave here knowing. You already said why you should become a coach. What do we need to know about coaches?
Never give up. Always walk into practice like you know what you're doing, whether you do it or not. I guarantee you they will believe you. Treat each one differently. They're not the same. Everybody has their own personality. Learn your athletes. Learn something about them that when you say it, they will know that you're talking to them directly, whether it's an athlete or a unified partner. Excuse me. unified partners need the same accolades as our athletes, because if you treat them as well as you treat your athletes, they will come back. And not only will they come back, they will come back as coaches. I have one right now that I adore, played unified with me in the 90s, and now she's my head coach and I'm assisting her. And I think that's just awesome. But to walk away and each, like I said, each athlete is different. And if you treat them different, but yet with respect, no matter what, and teach them how to respect themselves, teach them more than the sport. Teach them everyday life, living skills as such as, number one, manners. Speak when spoken to in some form or fashion. If you're nonverbal, teach them how to nod. Teach them how to wave, but make the contact. It makes a big difference in the world. You never know when you make an athlete happy. You never know what you say every day makes a difference to each and everybody that you make contact with.
Jim, what do you want this audience to know about your fellow law enforcement officers that are involved in Special Olympics?
I think that it's probably the only part of our job, if officers allow themselves the opportunity to be part of this program, it's the only part of this job where they get to be themselves and be loved unconditionally for who we are.
Very well said. Phantom, Gary talked about key volunteers. Everyone in the room knows that you're the epitome of a key volunteer that just keeps coming back year after year after year. What do we need to remember about key volunteers?
That they are volunteers.
Yeah.
That we can ask and ask and ask, and they will continue to give. But as B said, respect and consideration to the volunteers that you are recruiting goes a long way. Never expect a volunteer to do something that you are not willing to do yourself.
Very well said. Rob, I'm coming back to you. Gary, as a staff member, what do you want people to know about the SOMO staff? What should we remember about the SOMO staff?
We've got the best staff in literally the world, except for Robin. And
We'll keep you, Rob.
we literally had the best staff in the world. I teased Mary Lou for years and years and years, and I love her to death. I love every one of the staff members that I've worked with, and it's just the best staff you can work with. I mean, you know, you just get to be family. I would go to work and I was with my family. I'd go home and I was with my family. But I always had family with me because we were together all the time. Except for Mark, we had to do different things with him. So.
We miss you, Gary. Mr. Eichelberger, would you please tell us what we need to always remember about you and the 15,000 athletes that we serve?
That these athletes are totally amazing. They do things that are very incredible. We go beyond the common mile. Like Coach might ask us to do this. We might not want to, or we might not feel like it, but we always give our best, and that's all we can ask for.
Great.
And I want to thank the 15,312 athletes that we have in Special Olympics Missouri. And I hope to see that number continue to grow.
Myself have learned, you're not going to finish beyond an athlete. Well said. Let's hear it for the panel.